Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
We're on 120.
Welcome. 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 Everybody should be coming in muted. So if you're not muted, make sure you mute yourself so we don't get, although I do love to hear dogs and cats and things, it can make for hard listening for everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're so excited to have such a great crowd. I suspect we're already well on our way to 130, 150 people and more coming in, I know. So on behalf of Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance and our friends at Blue Hill Books, my name is Gibson Fay LeBlanc, and it's as I said, it's great to see such a wonderful audience here tonight during National Poetry Month, and for this conversation between these two wonderful poets and humans, Stuart Kestenbaum and Naomi Shihab Nye. So I'm going to quickly introduce them, and then they'll take it away. We will have time we'll be taking questions out of the chat later on, and we're going to do all sorts of fun things here tonight. So it is a great pleasure of mine to welcome Naomi Shihab Nye here tonight. Naomi is the Young People's Poet Laureate of the United States and lives in San Antonio. Palestinian American, she has worked in Maine many times, including at Haystack and in the Mars Hill Schools in Aroostook County. Her most recent books are Everything Comes Next, collected in New Poems, which came out last fall, Castaway, Poems of Our Time, and The Tiny Journalist, which won both Texas Poetry Awards. She received the Ivan Sadroff Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Book Critics Circle last year. I would also just like to add that it is a great thrill for me to meet Naomi here tonight. I have been reading and carrying around her poems with me for about 25 years. And if you don't believe me, I just happen to have right here a copy of an old anthology called The Language of Life that Bill Moyers put together in the late 90s. And when that was the first place that I encountered her poems, and they took the top of my head off. In one part of the interview, and talking about her poem Famous, on one of many dog-eared pages with a red box that I drew around it, Naomi says, "Whatever we pay attention to becomes famous to us." Naomi Shihab Nye is quite famous to those of us who carry her poems inside us, and I am so glad to have you here tonight. Let's not forget our other famous guest here tonight, Stuart Kestenbaum, who has been famous to Maine poets and creatives for several decades. First at the Maine Arts Commission, then as the third director of the Haystack Mountain School of Crafts, position he served in for 27 years, as the interim president of Mecca for a year or two, and then, of course, as Maine's 5th state poet laureate. And Stu is completing his 5-year term this year. Stu is the author of 6 collections of poems. Most recently, Things Seem to Be Breaking, which is one of the things that we are celebrating here tonight, as well as a collection of essays, The View from Here. He was the host of the Maine Public Radio program Poems from Here, and the host curator of the podcast Make Time and Voices of the Future, which is a great podcast that you should check out if you haven't already, with young writers from the Telling Room. Former U.S. Poet Laureate Ted Kuzer has written, "Stuart Kestenbaum writes the kind of poems I love to read, heartfelt responses to the privilege of having been given a life. No hidden agendas here, no theories to espouse, nothing but life, pure life, set down with craft and love." So I'm going to bring Stu and Naomi forward and get rid of myself and let these two wonderful folks take it away. Yep. All right.
Good. Hi. You're still muted. Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Gibson. That was a very generous introduction, and it's such an honor to be with Stuart Kestenbaum in his wonderful state of Maine again. Stu, thanks for inviting me to be part of this tonight. I'm so excited. Thank you all for coming. I have no idea how many of you are in Maine or other states, but I know Stuart has fans here in Texas where I am, all over the country and the world, so you might be anywhere. So thank you for coming and checking in tonight for this beautiful book's launch. Is this its official launch?
I think it is. Today's the official launch.
This is the official launch.
We're declaring it. Yeah.
And I would like you to take us into it in just a second. But Stu, I have to say, of all the many things I've read this year, this book is perfection. It felt to me like a perfect place to be. A book things seem to be breaking, seems to have an automatic connection to the lives we've been living over the past year plus. But the content, with its wry, whimsical, wise, deep, luminous minimalism, which is sort of what all our lives became, hopefully, if we weren't in high stress and trauma over people around us being sick. This title is perfect. The content is perfect. The feel of the book is perfect. I like rarely to talk about how a book feels, but this one, you just want to carry it around. The fonts in the book, the layout. I hope that you will describe for us, as if we are people who never heard of Blackout poems anywhere else, how you came to the form and then the format.
Sure. I should say, because I see Samantha there, if you do want to buy this book that Naomi just described, here's how to order. You can actually go right to Blue Hill Books. There's a link in the chat. And if you want me to actually inscribe it to you personally, if you just put that in the comments, I could do that. But, and also I did want to thank Jeffrey Haste, who's the publisher at Deerbrook Editions, because it took a while to get the book the way we wanted it, because it's got one image per 2 pages. So it looks like, so you can really look at it and get the paper the right way. So having people who make books and people who sell books makes writing books possible. So thanks to them. But I remember many years ago when I was at the Arts Commission, Maine Arts Commission, I saw somebody had done a Blackout poem, and I was just so taken with it, meaning taking out a lot of lines and leaving some words, or an erasure poem if you obliterate the line but don't black it out, but they're pretty closely related. But I was really taken with it, but I never found I just never did it until Susan Webster, my wife, and I were teaching at the Penland School in North Carolina, and there was a workshop that combined words and images. So we're thinking of just exercises. Mostly it was for non-writers to feel comfortable with writing. So Susan said, why don't we do a Blackout thing? And I hadn't not done it, but I said, sure, let's do it. And Susan made a template, which I'm looking for on my desk now and can't find, but it's actually the last image in the slides we have. But you know, it's a piece of paper that makes a space about like that. And I would just run it over a page in a book. So we found books that were being discarded at Penland, and we just started to do it. And I happened to, something just clicked when I did it that way. I looked at it, and I wasn't really thinking I was supposed to do anything other than working alongside the class, so I wouldn't be the teacher who didn't do what the assignment was. And I did that, and the first thing I did was the words that I left on the one page were a small pond, I think is what it was. And then we had rubber stamps because we were using that for other things. So we put a mat over it, and I rubber stamped Thoreau's Dream. And so I felt like it just happened in that moment. And I thought I could work that way. I felt like it just was a good way for me to really synthesize things. But you know, I also found that you can't try too hard with it.
Oh.
Like It has
Say
to
more.
be,
Yeah.
well, did you ever see there's a young girl who did New Yorker cartoon captions? In the captions in the back of the New Yorker, I can never think of what to say.
Yeah.
I just can't. And they had probably, she maybe was 10 or 11 years old. They would just show her each one and she would come up with this kind of hilarious caption. And she said, you can't try to be funny, she said, is what, and I think doing this, you can't like try to be witty, or you can't, it just has to be that it's there. And then I'll look at that line and then the thing I want to say comes to me, but I can't, I guess you can never force a poem anyhow. But I think with this, I felt like I have to be not totally aware of what I'm doing. I mean, aware, but not self-conscious, I guess.
Almost as if you had to let it sneak up on you. Like you could be looking at text, and I'm fascinated by how the template itself, the tool, triggered the unfolding of the project because you had the tool.
Yes.
Speaking of tools, there's a lot of jackhammering going on in the neighboring home. So if you start hearing a lot of wild sound, there's nothing we can do about it. They've decided this day to flatten what was recently their frozen backyard. So they have all kinds of bulldozers over there. It's really scary.
If we see things shake in the background, we'll know it's gotten serious.
Yes, but it's not inspiring me to do anything but ask them please to be quiet. But you were inspired with the template,
yeah,
for this whole beautiful project. And I think with many of your poems, I often have the feeling, your more traditional poems, that the glorious surprise in your poem, the twist at the end, the thing which comes along to surprise everyone when they're reading your poem, I have the feeling that it's so pure that it sneaked up on you too, just the way it's sneaking up on us. Would you say that that often happens for you through the process of writing? You really are surprised by where the poem takes you? A regular poem.
Yeah. I think I want to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about, there's the essay that Robert Frost wrote, The Figure a Poem Makes, and he has a line in it. He says, no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader either. Right. That I just,
yeah.
But I feel like the ending will have, like it was inside me and I didn't know it, I guess. And that's how I'd like to feel. That's, I think, maybe how I feel about doing the lines of this. But, I was thinking about if Susan hadn't given me that limitation, like, yeah. It's like, maybe it's a thing from, being in Haystack and seeing people work with materials, but you realize like it's all in the limitation. It's not like you can't do everything. You have to do one thing. And here are the limitations to that one thing. How are you going to do it? Focus is the work. So that little, whatever size this is, that's my framework for seeing the world. And that.
And in a way, that's a parallel to many of our lives this past year, that we stayed in a very circumscribed perimeter of our yard, our home, our apartment. We didn't go out recklessly, randomly, as we often have in the past. We just stayed. And so in some ways, I feel that parallel with these pages and the lives we've lived. And I think your last comment, the visual object as poem in the book, the afterword, maybe
yeah.
It is so perfect at the end. Each piece is its own meditation. The words that remain and the words that are spoken back, the space in between. And when I was reading through these, I just found the reconsideration of the title riveting after reading the line. I mean, it was almost hard to know where to let your eye go first. So when you read them, if you were reading them, as you will in a minute to us, you'll read the line before the title, right? Is that what you'll do?
I think I do.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that because I was curious if I was doing it in the way it was.
Because that's the first thing I see when I'm, when I'm making them is the text from the book.
It just felt right to do it that way. Has this whole year, I know you've had so many projects going on, but did it feel like a Blackout poem in your own life, like the metaphor, or
I,
not?
well, I was thinking this year I haven't written, I've been writing like shorter essays and doing the Blackout poems. So it's either felt like I wanted to say more or I wanted to say less. And maybe it felt like like a, um, like if there's, it's not an inability to speak, but it's like maybe I just didn't want to say more. Yeah, like a world that's been constricted. But a lot of these I also did during the Trump era, which was a great era for poetry, because the darker the times, the better the poets get, I think. And so some of these were done then, and they just seem to fit like if you want to scream and you can't, but you can have like one. There's one poem in there which just is called Redaction, and it says, "Uh-oh, the president." Like I felt like I could say more, but I felt like that's all. Maybe that's all I needed to say that. It's like
That was enough.
like
It was
like the
refreshing.
ultimate editing project. Like how much do you need to say?
Right.
Which is always like the challenge of a poem too, right? Like if you want to say, for me, like you want to say just the amount you need to say to make the poem work.
Right.
Right. We got.
It feels like a practice. We had used the words when we talked about the book before: distillation, rich reduction. And that's what this book felt like, nothing extra in any way. And I noted that you call them images, not poems, in the table of contents, which is interesting. So
Right.
you think of them as images.
Yeah, I do. And I think I never, if I hadn't been, at Haystack and other places around visual artists, I don't know if I would have thought of like it as a visual presentation. I don't think I, saw myself as a visual maker, but this kind of gave me a way to do it. And it's also like, it's tangible because I'm actually holding, I'm cutting things up. I'm cutting and opening with a matte knife. I'm stamping. So it's more tactile than poets are sometimes.
The stamping is absolutely magnificent as well. Sometimes they're a little crooked.
Yeah.
And you seem to have a perfect instinct for when they should be a little crooked. Stuart, would this be a good moment to share some with
Sure.
them?
Yeah. So we're going to share the screen, and I thought I would just kind of go through them, and even if you've seen them all, you can still buy the book. Yeah. So
you want to still buy the book.
Yeah, and when in the book, I was going through making these images as a PowerPoint because it's the best way to show them. But I realized that the images in the book are done in alphabetical order, and it seemed like as good a way as any to organize them. But they seem to I like beginning a book with a blessing. It just a lot of things seem to line up that way. And the books that I've been using are generally like things that I've gotten at the dump, like from the Take It or Leave It building. So the spines are gone, or they've lived their useful life. And some of the sources I actually have here. One is Left Behind by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins, and it's an apocalyptic, evangelical book. Larry King's autobiography, a broken copy of The Road Less Traveled. So all those are like, I'll just take out pages from there. So I don't know. I can tell by the type sometimes which book I got it from. But so Gibson, you can go to the next one. And Naomi, if you want to stop on any of them, just let me know. Like that was definitely like a Trump era one for me, but it wouldn't have to be. I mean, I realize they seem. I believe that this speaks to any time in American history, just because I did it when Trump was president. Okay, next one. Sometimes, like this one, I have. When I first started them, I had more text, and I started to go with less text. I like that the lines for me became part of it. And like in this one, separating, there might have been some other these in it, but somehow it lined up that I could put the and Phoenix and separate them, and it just seemed like the right gesture. Next.
This one is so terrific.
Yes. When I do writing workshops, we had some cards printed up, and I give them to everybody at the end. If I work with like art students who have to write statements, and maybe that's what you were getting at, you know, like with the end of a poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have a bunch of returning images. That was. Sometimes I get a kick out of it when I know it just that lines up, and I just know what I'm gonna. I don't always know exactly what I'm gonna stamp. I'll write it down in the corner of the page, so I go, "This is what I'll do." But then I'll look it over and change my mind afterwards. I just write it in pencil before I, you know, stamp it. But it gives me the framework. You know, some ways I felt like I could be more direct than I am anytime else. You know, like in a poem, somehow it was like, but I wouldn't want them to be like diatribes. I just want them to be there and have you see it at the same time. That one kind of made itself.
Fantastic. You did say that you felt comfortable being more political than you often are.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know if I could find a way to do that in a poem that would be not feel. I don't know. I don't think I have that voice when I write with more words.
This one really made me laugh.
Yeah. Laugh or cry. Yeah.
Yeah. And this one made me cry.
Yeah. I had another one which I didn't put in the book, but it was in the middle of it. It said Vietnam, just about the same place. I blacked everything out, and I stamped one out of many, but I just didn't use that in the book.
Oh, this one is so brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of lets me say something I wouldn't say, and it's like a format that lets me speak in a different way than I have before. And I'd like them like this one, you know, it could be the side you think you're against, but I think it's good to think of it as a side you're on too. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a. I find using the big black markers too. It's a highly technical process, but I use a big fat Sharpie marker like that, and it somehow feels like those other words have survived, or it's like a kind of poignancy just to see that much like black on a page for me.
Well, there's something haunting about being able to see little parts of them.
Mm-hmm. I have to hold my breath when I do the Sharpie, otherwise I'd be too high by the end of a morning of writing.
Mm.
I just got a kick out of that one. I thought that was so funny when I did it. I don't, I don't have a favorite, but I just something about. But also when I maybe I said this, but when I first started, I was using a lot more words. I mean, you could make something out of like have a 20 words on this page. It could be a poem. But this began just to evolve into like, what's the simplest way I can say this thing? You know, kind of the fewest words. Not to have it be like a game, but because it just seemed like the right gesture, I think. I find when I look at them, I kind of remind myself of what I was thinking too. Like I think it again. And there's no going back and saying, oh, I think I'll revise that one. That's all you got. Once you black out the text.
I just wish these could be billboards.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think Maine is too smart to have billboards, but
We don't
could
have
sure use
billboards,
them-
right?
We
Yeah.
could sure use them down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could start a Texas campaign.
We have a question coming in from Sally. Did any of the Blackout poems spur longer exploration in the form of a poem? Like,
No.
did you go on with any of them to write a longer, different poem?
No. I think I felt like this was like it's like I'm doing like a line drawing, or it's like it's the thing. I didn't no, it pretty much was like each of these was its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideas are ones that I would do in my own, in other work I do, but
Yeah.
you know, this one I was thinking just how, like after September 11th, you know, everybody wanted a poem, you know, or after something, you know, tragedy is when all of a sudden people realize there are poets in the world. That in April, which is National Poetry Month.
Two more questions.
Yep.
From D. Did a Sharpie error ever reveal an unexpected poem?
No, just I pretty much is if I miss with the Sharpie, I'm done. I gotta just start with a new page.
Susie comments they'd make great tattoos.
Yeah.
Phyllis asks, did you experiment with the visual qualities of the lines?
I did, because there's some like early on, well, they're different, you know, some books are have more space between the lines, and that changes it. Some of the like the cheaper paperbacks have tighter lines, so that made a tighter line. But like the one about Read It and Weep, which is coming up, that has really seems very sorrowful. And but I generally got a kind of a thicker Sharpie. I love just to do it. It just
hold on to this one here. Hold it for a second.
Yeah.
I reached for the nearest piece of paper. Judith asks, did you begin with the title? I wondered this too, or begin by perusing the text for a word or words?
Always the text.
Always the text. So the title always came second. Yeah, a couple of people have asked.
I never think of the title wouldn't exist if I didn't see that line.
And we've had the question, how are Blackout poems like and different from found poems?
Well, I'm doing a lot more manipulation because I'm adding I mean, I don't even know if you would call this, it's a Blackout poem because the text is blacked out, but then I add a line that actually sets it up. So it's, you know, I think a found poem would be, you just see something that you can change, do line breaks in it. It just becomes a kind of poem, and you've noticed it. This, I feel like I'm actually picking out text, so it feels a lot different to me than
really, this is a case in which the title is as significant and important as the line, the text. I mean, they have an equivalency of power. They need each other.
Right.
They need that third thing that's happening between them too.
Yes. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Dick says these are so reminiscent of the older redacted government documents before they started using blocks of black. A lot of very revealing discoveries were made because of incomplete blackouts. And the
Right.
same sense exists here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. That's good. And Diedlin says, it's interesting how the fewer words there are, the greater the specificity and the universality at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are questions about showing these in a gallery setting, which is happening or coming up right now,
Right.
right?
They're in, yeah, they're all, there's 30 of them are at Cove Street in Portland, which is a really great gallery where I'm having a show of these poems and also collaborative work that Susan Webster, my wife, and I did. And then Susan has some big installations. And the title of the show is also Things Seem to Be Breaking. And that's up through May 22nd. And we're going to do an artist talk on April 29th about how we work together too. So this is kind of the far end of working together, and that I wouldn't have made these if Susan hadn't given me the template. That kind of
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. I can imagine a lot of people would want to buy this one. Are you going to sell these?
Well, I'm selling them, yeah, as individual pieces, framed pieces,
You are.
like limited editions, plus the book. I like Susie's tattoo idea, but I'd have to really work. Can you make a copyright on a tattoo? Make the little C with the circle? That'd be a lot of ink too.
Do you think you'll continue to create poems like these or return to more traditional poems?
I don't know. I really like doing them, and it felt like well, this is like who I am to make these. But I'm also aware of not wanting to be too self-conscious of, oh, that's great. Why don't you make some more of the same thing? You know, it's like, well, this was the time I made these. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I did a more after we settled on the poems for the book, and it's a kind of great way to focus myself too. You know, I can just you know, do them in the morning when I'm not too awake. I'm awake enough to be a person, but not awake enough to be thinking about myself. Is my best time for it.
Yeah.
But you get up earlier than that.
Well, there's such a contemplative quality about this less but better kind of page. Another question, does it ever feel like weaving to you? That's from Shahelis. She says, I'm not a weaver, but it does feel like a setup loom.
You know, it makes me feel like a maker in a way that because it's so tactile. Like actually, you know, my level of craftsmanship, as you can tell from my stamping, is minimal. But I just like the tactile quality of running the Sharpie like across a line. So I just not so much weaving, but it definitely feels like I'm a maker when I'm doing it.
And a few people have asked again, what is the original text? But the text is many different books, right?
Yeah, they're different. There are probably 4 or 5 books. One, the most recent one was that Scott Peck book that was The Road Less Traveled. Then there's Larry King, the Left Behind, the Dick Cheney's autobiography gave me some good lines like Baghdad, you know, but and I see there's a question about how many Sharpies did I go through. I do need a good Sharpie that lays down a good dark line. So I don't care some of the letters show, but I want the obliteration to be a big part of it.
Could we go to the one previous to this one just for a minute? Oh, this one. This one is just so stirring as well. So beautiful.
And that was using more lines than
More
I usually.
lines.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll look at a page. You know, I have two sides of each page to look at, and I'll take my template and I move it around like a Ouija board. You know, the thing in the Ouija board where you do that. But I don't. But sometimes it just doesn't. Nothing appears. Nothing comes up that says make something out of me. You know, even though it seems like, oh, that could be a good line. It's really like it's not like fishing. I don't know what it's like, but it's definitely like a part. You know, it's the page in me. You know, I can't like force it. And this one has longer. It is it's more words than many of them have, and it's got more of a like a poetry line break. But it,
Yes. I was wondering if you're even able to read the newspaper anymore.
like I want to be like Charlie Chaplin in modern times when he starts to go out and wants to tighten everything on the assembly line. Everything I see, I want to black out. I don't.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated how people are connecting these to musical notes with the staffs of the notes up and down, with the letters, the fluttering verticals. Beautiful comment, Mary. Have a staccato effect north and south. And then they're like seeds. Why are they not seeds? Sharpie carvings. You've been offered a Bible.
No.
No, you won't do that.
No.
We need another link to the book in a moment. We'll have that. And yes. Great questions, everybody. What a group here tonight. Wish we were all sitting around a huge fire somewhere, just talking. Our Zoom screens have become our fires.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talk about maybe your podcast. How did these connect to the podcast?
No, it was a separate. The Make Time one. No, that was with Make Time was interviews with like creative makers and thinkers working with materials.
Right.
But I do think my time at Haystack made me see writing differently because I began to think of words as my material.
Yes.
In a way that I think I didn't if I just went to like a writing program. I would have thought of words as words, but you're around all these people who are cutting things and firing them and stitching them. I began to see myself that way. This was another. This felt like a much darker line. Like the line becomes a kind of sorrow to me.
Did you ever try a different color marker?
No, I'm a black and white guy.
It makes me think of a year at Haystack when the poetry workshop, everyone on the first day was invited to pitch some words out of their own vocabulary, their own personal lexicon, words they would really like to get rid of, free themselves of, and they put them in the fire pit. And then we were going to burn them on the last day because people were putting them in as the week went on. And then the bookmakers came and took some of our words, and then they reinvented them and they made beautiful books and gave them back to us. Like, how could we take the words you hated or discarded at least and give them back to you in a shape beautiful enough that you would want to keep them?
Right. Yeah, I like that. It's like hate being the other side of love, or yeah. That's kind of an inside joke, I guess. This prominent oxymoron one. I tried to stay away from being like cute.
This is my favorite ones too. I just had to insert that.
I think we sent this out as a holiday card.
I think you did.
Yeah.
And I think this one really could be the great billboard of our time. Everywhere, put everywhere. Yeah.
Maybe we could get one of those, the Noxzema little airplanes that fly over the beach. Good.
And this one too. The ones about peace are so profound, so elemental, stunning.
This one was a Trump era one, I think. Yeah, this was one of the earlier ones I did, so that it was kind of a, you know, a different line. It almost looks like I had a paintbrush when I did it, but it also seems like in a way the thing you could cry over most, or
Well, the bars feel heavier, like the heaviness of being
yeah,
locked in, like a
yeah,
wall, right? Like a
yeah.
prison. Yeah. Oh,
So that's how the cover of the book is actually just, you know, that blown up.
mhm, yeah. And how different it becomes with the title.
Yeah, and somehow, you know, this thing of um, I mean, it definitely feels like like it could be the title of every book written during the pandemic.
It does.
Yeah,
Would you have a sense of exhilaration and joy after making one?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd get a real just because I wouldn't know what it was going to be till it was there. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
This could be one of the funniest ones.
yeah,
I think this is very funny. Yeah, the titles and stamps are genius.
yeah,
This book is incredible. Yes. And Sally says the energy that comes from these juxtapositions is so palpable. Mm, mm,
I think, you know, when I was making these, I was also thinking a lot about language, like you know, the abuse of language that we get through like slogans, political rhetoric. You know, it's like they're all short lines too, but they're like bludgeons, kind of. You know,
yeah. Um, we had a comment earlier from Annette about using these with high school students and that she would like to share with them how the titles and the text speak to one another. And I think another possibility with high school students and these would be to have each person write a poem or a paragraph from after viewing this and where it takes them, because they're so minimalist that they wouldn't overwhelm or uh, pressure a student to feel there was one thing being um, requested of them in terms of interpretation. I think it would be
right?
marvelous to
As
see
a
how
way to prompt it,
this.
yeah.
Yes.
Because you know, somebody did ask me at a if at the exhibit I wanted people could try to make their own, and I felt like, well, no, like I felt like just look at them. You can make your own thing the way you want to make it. It's like it's I don't have a copyright or patent on Blackout poetry, but it feels like this is what I did to respond to a certain situation. And
Right.
if it helps you make another thing that responds to the situation, I think that's great. But I wouldn't want to feel like I mean, I suppose, you know, you can always like do a unit in haiku for people. You could do something in Blackout poetry, but this felt like just the way I felt like I could get at what I was trying to say to in the world at that moment that I did them.
David Sloan has said these little gems may be the poetic equivalent of 6-word stories. And this is a great question here. Has the exercise of extreme distillation affected your other poetic work? Have your other poems changed?
Well, you know, actually, what I'm writing is like longer, like 500,000 word essays. So
Oh,
maybe it has. It's actually, I went short on one and I've gone long on the other, at least for right now. I don't, it's just what I think right now I'm just trying to follow what seems like the right thing to
mhm,
like to do.
yes, right. And hi, Lisa. Lisa says, these are works of art, Stuart. I think you should exhibit these. I've seen many works that are created with blocking out words, but yours are incredible.
Wow.
And
Well,
this
they're
is
Cove
why,
Street right now. If you get to Portland, it's a great gallery, and I would love to show them other places.
yeah, so maybe they could travel to San Francisco, Lisa. That would be good.
Yeah.
Yes. Simple, profound, intimate. I realized that I had forgotten, I had looked at the fabulous Maria Kalman's comment on the back of your book um, a while ago. And when I was giving my little intro about feeling this was a perfect book tonight, I had forgotten that she also says that. She says, in the less is definitely more department, we have arrived at perfection. Stuart Kestenbaum's extracted poems are beacons of tender, funny, minimalist illumination and beautiful to look at. In short, it is all there. So I'm thinking, I don't really use the word perfection very often or think in terms of it, but I do think, I think this book achieves it.
Wow. I got a perfection from you and from Maria Kalman. I think.
Well, I think she's
That's
pretty
it.
great too. Yeah, and someone else says, Julia Rose, I kind of want these to exist in the world as a big stack of postcards. They can travel the world. Well, that is a great possibility that they could be boxes of stationery.
Yeah, I would love to, if there was a way to, if I could find, like Deerbrook Editions doesn't do things like that. If if I could find somebody who would do it, I think they could be pretty cool that way.
Yeah, they would. That would be a very popular box of stationery. Yeah. Do you black out with your left hand or both?
Left.
Oh,
I'm left-handed. I'm
oh,
left-handed. My dominant hand.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Betsy comments, it's amazing that your spirit comes through in these. It really does. I mean, you still hear your voice in something this minimalist.
Right. Well, I think that's what I like about him. I felt like maybe there's a part like for me, the poems that I feel best about, and maybe the ones I respond most that other people write, is when you feel like you got that, you're hearing somebody's voice, like you've touched it in some way, and yeah, somehow it just was like the right format for me to make these.
I feel as if they're palate cleansers too. They're refreshments for people who have been exhausted in many ways over the past 4 years. We've had the question a couple more times. How long will that show be in Portland? And say again the gallery, please.
It's Cove Street Arts, and it'll be up through May 22nd.
Okay.
It's a beautiful gallery. It's one of the biggest exhibition spaces in Maine. Really nice space. So plenty of space to not be near other people and still look at things.
Oh, look at this one. I think of many places in the world with this one. Yep.
I felt like a little child when I did this one. Like it would be the question you'd ask, like the innocent question that's like says it all.
Yeah. They're very touching. It's amazing. And this is the final one in the book, which is ironic in a year in which we've all stayed home.
Yes.
But
and that just was the alphabet. That was just the wisdom of the alphabet that did that. It was just W, so.
It's beautiful. People have asked if you feel that you'll be doing more combination of visual art and words in your future, or are you not thinking of that yet?
I like doing these. I haven't done them for a while just because we were getting the book ready and I was working on a bunch of other projects. So I think I definitely like doing the visual things and the work that Susan and I do that combines the two. Like I have in the show at Cove Street, a whole series where Susan has a small image and then I do poems where I make dots with a fine point Sharpie marker. I make words that fill the same space as the image. So I have to stop when I get to the bottom. I think I like that, having limitations like that.
Mm.
And the last one, the template is the last image I put in for you, Naomi.
Oh,
there it is.
I love that.
In case I forget what it is, Susan wrote template on it too.
And I had pictured to our gathering here tonight, I had pictured that the template only had the size of one line on it. So I was quite surprised when I saw this big of a space on it.
Yeah.
I do have to read Chelsea's comment. Thank you for making and sharing these. I love that you squeezed these calls for earthly peace and justice from Left Behind and Cheney's memoir.
Yeah.
Camera obscura.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bravo. A hand from all of us. What a book. What an amazing book. This is a book no one wants to put on the shelf either, because you want it to be just standing on your desk and a place to go when one needs to feel that restoration of text. I was surprised by the alphabetical arrangement, because when I had seen just a couple of them that you had shared, I had no idea you'd be doing that. Or
right. And it's somehow they all relate to one another, so I think they're always in a relationship, and that somehow, I think actually that it just happenstance, but I really like that it starts with a blessing and ends with knowing what Dorothy found out, that she was, there's no place like home.
yes.
So, yeah.
Um,
Hey, do you want to talk about your vaccine project?
Well, I would love to bring it up, but I just wanted to see if anyone else had comments on or questions for Stu on this most exquisite work of art. It's funny what to call this, because I don't want to just call it a book of poems. It's something else. It's definitely a work, a made, shaped work of art. Again, let's repeat where Stu's books are at Blue Hill Books. And I think this book would be a great, great gift for people who shy away from poetry or think they want to. We're always running into those people, although I don't think any of them are here tonight, but I think it's the kind of book that one might feel inclined to give for all kinds of occasions too. To me, in some ways, it seems like a graduation book. Could you talk about collaboration with Susan in your projects, from Doug?
Oh, sure. So Susan and I work on some project together, like the cover of this book of poems is a piece that we did together, where Susan does the image, then I look at it, and then I added that text. I don't know if you can see it, but they're all stamped. And we don't really talk to each other about what we're going to do. We just know each other. So we don't say, oh, I made this piece, why don't you say this about it? Or if I give her some writing that I say, oh, I think you should use red. It's more that we're trusting, that we're intuiting similar kinds of things. So it's kind of it's a partnership. And then if either of us doesn't like a piece, we get to get rid of it. We have each have total veto power over, and then some of that works at Cove Street. That's a little chancier when I do letter stamping on some of those, but could be a big drawing that Susan has worked on for a month, and then I take a rubber stamp and put it on that paper. That's a little frightening.
That's a scary moment.
Yeah, it is. It is, but she's trusting and forgiving, so it works out.
Yeah, such a harmonious, collaborative experience.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind to invite people to consider the globalvaccinepoems.com. You're all invited to go to that site, Dear Vaccine, Global Vaccine Poems. Stu has said he'll read what he added to the site, and I'll read what I put on the site. But this was an idea that was started by the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University in Ohio and the University of Arizona, the Poetry Center at Tucson. And Tyler Meyer and David Hassler, longtime friends who were the directors of those two places, wanted to do a collective cheer from not just Americans, people, humans in the world, for this moment of possibility of our world changing for the better if more people get the vaccine. And So they started the idea of thinking of how could poetry serve and be a way of expression for people who are getting their shots and to share their voices together. So they asked me to write the little prompt poem on the site, which I actually started writing when we were all on the phone. I felt so strongly about the project. They were talking to me and I was just sitting there writing the poem. So I'll read mine, or would you like to read yours first? Or?
Why don't you read? Because I wrote mine in response to your prompt.
Okay. And we have more than 1,000 entries, maybe 1,200 by now, and from all over the world and all the states. But we'd love to have more from wherever you are. Dear vaccine, save us, dear vaccine. Take us seriously. We had plans. We were going places. Children in kindergarten. So many voices in chorus. Give us our world again. Tiny gleaming vials, enter our cities and towns, shining your light. Restore us to each other. We liked our lives. Maybe we didn't thank them enough. Being able to cross streets with people we didn't know, pressing elevator buttons, smiling at strangers, standing in line to pay. We liked standing in line more than we pretended. It's a quick prick in the arm. You'll barely notice it. It's the gas in the car getting us going again. It's the turn in the road, face-to-face conversation someday soon. It's the hug, forever. It's the hug. Vaccine, please make the air clean. We went to yoga classes, deep collective breathing in small rooms in cities where we didn't even live. How brave we were. Vaccine, please restore our lives. Believe they were beautiful. So little cards are being given out at different vaccine sites. San Antonio started this week, passing out cards inviting people to write down their own response to getting the vaccine. So we have this big collective voice out there. So Stu, would you read what you wrote?
And this is my response to the line, Dear Vaccine. Dear Vaccine, you brought us from small Maine towns to the new arena in Bangor, where in late winter we once traveled over frost-heaved roads to watch our basketball teams in the state tourney. Now we gather again and line up, not to head to the stands and cheer, but to have smiling, if I could see inside their masks, volunteers direct us to you, to let you journey inside us to places too small for us to see and too large for us to comprehend. Dear Vaccine, we roll up our sleeves or take off our shirts. We think of those who are no longer here. We think of the places we have come from and our road home.
I'm so moved by your poems, Stu. That's perfect. Our road home. When you go to the big arena and then all those things, our road home. Again, another perfect poem. Thank you so much for participating. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's Global Vaccine Poem. There's no S on it. My mistake. Oh. Sorry. There's no S on it. So it's Global Vaccine Poem. There you go. Thanks. Thank you so much, Sam, for doing that. Please welcome to come. And if any of you are in the medical community in Maine and you know anyone at any of the vaccine sites, just be in touch with the people at Wick Poetry Center or University of Arizona Poetry Center, and they will get cards to you and start passing them out. Stu, I feel as if you have, with this gorgeous book, somehow put us all back together. Things seem to be breaking quite often this year in so many ways, but there's something, a stitchery of magic potion power to make us feel better being with your work. So thank you for your great spirit tonight, and thank all of you for coming. If anyone has a last question for Stu, we'll pass it over. I really appreciated all the great questions you put up there, everyone.
I haven't looked at any of the questions. It makes me nervous. So Naomi's looked
No,
at.
I'm the translator of the
Yeah.
questions. I love looking at the questions. Well, thank you all for your
Yeah.
beautiful comments. You have appreciative fan base out there all over the country, Stu. We thank you for all the great work you've done for making, for poetry, for encouraging. It's a huge honor to know your work and you and your family. And thanks from all of us out here.
Exactly the same to you. Thank you so much for doing this. And if you do want to, just to get commercial again,
Yes.
I wish there was a toll-free number, because I love to say toll-free numbers like on the radio fund drives. But if you want a book autographed, you can, with a left-handed person, you can go to Blue Hill Books and do that. And if you want me to inscribe it specifically to you, just put that. There's like a comment thing you can put it in. Thank you all for coming and coming into our rooms. And Naomi, would you tell them what the light is behind you? Because you told me before.
Oh, yes, the light behind me is another reuse item. It is a bicycle rim turned into a light by our friend Bill Simons, who used to manage a bicycle shop. And when he retired, he started making light fixtures out of all the stuff in his garage.
Gibson, is there anything else we need to do?
I don't think so. You two have been so wonderful. I've been happy to stay in the background here. So thanks to both of you for doing this, and thanks to everybody in the crowd out there tonight for all your great comments and questions.
Thank you all very much. And Stu, we have a chance to go back to Aroostook County and do a reading. I'd go in a jiffy. Someday, let's go.
Do it.
Thank you. It's a wonderful place. Well, love to Maine, love to all your states.
Take
Good
care,
wishes,
everybody.
be healthy. Thank
Yeah.
you, Stuart. Keep
Thank
spreading the word. Things seem to be breaking.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks.